Name's Ed Zarella. I'm the global partner in charge of our information risk management practice at KPMG.
Now, risk is part of every business. The gravity varies from industry to industry and business to business. What are the different types of risks associated with information?
That's a very good question. If you go across the different industries, if you look at financial services, in the technology side, that would be probably one of the number two or even number one priority risks that they would focus on. Why? Because financial services organisation, and that means banks, insurance companies, technology is a very significant part of their strategic processes and also their plans going forward. So they would have to look at technology and assess the risk of it. If you look at now some of the other areas that we're starting to see, look at retail, for example. Look at organisations like Walmart. They're revolutionising the retail industry. In the past, the technology side would have been the number one risk that would have looked at, because they would have focused on different issues. But if you look at now in the retail industry, technology is now becoming absolutely crucial to improving their logistics, their value chain, the whole supply chain. So from a industry perspective, it's now risen up to one of the key areas they've got to focus on. So technology risk for retail industry is starting to rise up to the occasion. If you look at production organisations like manufacturing, their side is technology was still probably maybe number 3, 4 in the hierarchy of risks. But that's increasing as well as people start revolutionising and globalising their processes, and you're going to see that raise up to the occasion as well. The industry that was seeing still not playing as high as it should, even though in their front part of their business that technology is considered a high risk, is in the utilities market. If you look at utilities in the industry, technology is used at the forefront in the business, but it actually doesn't rate very high by some directors. It's really kind of bizarre. But you're starting to see that they're starting to change too as they become more competitive, margins start improving, and also where they're faced with new competitors who are actually using technology to advance their cause. Government's an interesting one, because I wish from a global perspective you have a lot of federal type agencies at the federal level, the higher country government level. They are starting to look at technology, e-government, that's actually starting to play a lot, and they're looking at technology as a risk because their constituents are demanding it. It then does vary when you get to the more state or provincial government, and then at the local government level. Technology still hasn't made that big an impact. It's starting to happen, but we find that, and in a number of organisations we've worked with, that at the local government, even at the provincial level, technology is not that big an issue. But at the federal or the country level, absolutely.
How clear is the understanding of enterprises with regards to the gravity of their risk exposure?
To me, that's probably the $64,000 question, is that most organisations have a very high level assessment of what risk is. What they struggle with is how do they manage those risks. And I'm quite surprised, even by global organisations, is that people don't have within an organisation, and it's unfortunate because we've done our surveys and do not have a consistent view of what risk is in the organisation. You may bring a group of directors together or executives together, and many of them will have a different view of what the risk is for the organisation. Now, what we believe one thing that they should do is get the executive to say, for our company or our organisation, either government, in the public or private sector, is what are the risks that we as an entity should be looking at. And it's amazing that you won't find everybody agreeing. That is, in today's age, in where we are now, in this century, people still do not have a consistent view of risk. And some people actually don't even understand what risk is, which is kind of surprising.
Now, is there an association or body dedicated to the development of platforms or strategies toward the standardization of risk management practices?
There are many organisations now worldwide. There's the international risk management bodies, the standards organisations that actually do provide advice to organisations and even give them the standards to actually manage against risk management. What we're also seeing is other professional bodies, like the accounting bodies worldwide, professional bodies There are risk management bodies, even organisations I've even, been speaking to, engineering bodies, where they're saying we need to consider risk. Risk is part of what we do, and how do we manage it? So many organisations actually now starting to consider and set standards to say, when we manage when you're managing your business and manage your organisation, these are the sort of standards you've got to have in place for risk management purposes. And there's much guidance out there for organisations to follow. It's just about which one is particular for their particular industry or particular organisation.
How should enterprises approach new technologies with regards to existing risk management policies?
One of the areas I think people struggle, when people introduce new technologies, they don't realise the basics that you have in risk management are the same. But they don't seem to apply it. They say, well, it's a new technology, we'll do things a little bit differently this time. Well, it's not. And when I've been involved in a lot of organisations with new technologies, where they have very strict risk management processes in place, the new technologies have to also meet that. Most organisations that, when they roll out new technologies and they struggle, what they struggle with is they haven't applied the basics. Risk management on new technologies requires the same basic management processes. The same philosophy has to apply. It's nothing brand new.
What is your advice for enterprises who are looking at risk management?
For us, in best practice, and where we see the organisations that actually work very, very well in the risk management side, is when they look at their risks from a holistic point of view. And what I mean by that is, like, from an enterprise point of view. Don't look at it just a particular function, like your finance function or your operations, but look at it from a broad business point of view and say, what are the top risks that the board, that senior class executive have to deal with? It could be market risk, it could be credit risk, it could be liquidity risk, it could be technology risk, it could be operational risk, it could be competitor risk, but actually to bring it to the organisation at a holistic point of view, then to actually then come down at the next level. Most organisations jump straight to the detail and struggle with thousands of risks to manage. On a day-to-day, nobody manages 1,000 risks, like it's trying to manage them all. What an organisation does, it says, what are the top 10, top 15 that we have, and we have to manage, because if you get those wrong, that's when the organisation goes under. The organisation doesn't go under because you've just forgotten about one little risk way down here. It's got to look at the holistic point of view of risk management from the whole enterprise, and making sure that all the executives are together. The other thing too about the enterprise risk management side is that the executive, like I answered my other question about do people have a consistent view of risk. In an organisation, the best practice one, they all understand what is a risk for that organisation. Forget everyone else. What does the risk mean for that organisation? Then what strategies do we put in place to mitigate those risks? You can't eliminate risk. I mean, no organisation, whether it's a government organisation or a private sector organisation, will manage risk, right, and say, you know what, we're going to eliminate it and we won't do anything. That's not true. People always mitigate and have risk. You've got to have risk. Whether from an enterprise point of view is every executive has to have the same view of what those risks are. How we mitigate it may change within the organisation, but they must say it's competitor risk or market risk. If they don't, you're going to have an organisation when that risk occurs, all the executive are running in different directions and nobody knows how to manage it, and that's where organisations get themselves in trouble. Like fraud risk. When an organisation has a fraud, executive, unless they've seen that this is how we're going to manage that risk, this is the strategy. I've seen organisations get themselves in real trouble when they have a fraud risk. They can't manage the public, they can't manage their own organisation. You have to manage it from a holistic point of view. Everyone has to have a consistent view of risk management. If they don't, the organisation is not managing itself efficiently.